Right, welcome back everybody. So we continue our discussion and dissection of the budget that was announced last week by the Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan. The 2017-18 budget was an opportunity for government to concentrate on addressing South Africa's radical economic transformation to deal with the youth aged 15 to 34 who remain vulnerable in the labour market, with unemployment sitting at around 37.1%, which is 10.6 percentage points above the national average. Now, reacting to the budget speech, the Black Business Council has arrived at a position that considered the use by government of only inflation targeting as a tool to be primitive. The BBC calls upon government to use wider ranges of macroeconomic policy tools than as a key. To tell us more about this and the reaction from the Black Business Council, we are joined in studio by the organization's Secretary General, George Sebolela. George, good to have you. Welcome to Morning Live.
Thank you so much.
All right, so the position of the BBC regarding this budget speech, I mean, it doesn't sound like you guys were blown away by what was announced by our Finance Minister.
Look, firstly, I think our argument has always been, what the President has mentioned in the SONA, the State of the Nation address, vis-a-vis what Pravin has presented in his budget speech. Just to quote what the President mentioned was that the radical economic transformation involves, the radical change of the structures, the ownership, the control, the management, the system of economy to ensure that it accommodates all South Africans, but in particular, especially the previously disadvantaged, which in a nutshell, in numbers, is the black business or black people of the country. And what we heard, in fact, from Pravin is, I think, Pravin talked about the transformation of the economy. We are worried that when he started, in fact, part of his starting of the speech, he mentioned that 10% of the total population of this country owns 90% of the economy. Yeah. But what he doesn't do is he doesn't say how we're going to change to ensure that many participate in that economy. And that's where the Black Business Council's position is.
Yeah. Let's get some of your views. How do you think it should work? I mean, what do you think fundamentally he should have mentioned in this budget speech that would include the grouping that you're talking about and spread that wealth out?
Well, firstly, bear in mind as Black Business Council, we have said many times that firstly, we have to radicalize the procurement process of this country, the policies of this country. If you look at the PPPFA, which is the procurement policy that sits in National Treasury, it doesn't allow it. It has always been based on a 90-10 principle, which means 90% is price, 10% is all other, compliance requirements, including be within that 10%. Yeah. And logic tells you that if you have a big capacity, you can be able to play around with price. So that's number one. The second thing is recently he introduced to say 30% of the total procurement spend is going to be spent, subcontracted to black business. But within that 30%, you have what you call QSE, which is qualifying small enterprises. You have EME, which is exempted micro enterprises, which in a nutshell, that they don't necessarily have to be white. It's based on turnover. So if you go in a rural place like Middleburg, which is predominantly white dominated, you will find that a lot of businesses that are there qualify within the QSC and EME. To achieve that 30%, it's really impractical. So the other important aspect is that the expenditure that he talked about to be spent on the SMME, it's quite small relative to the budget that he allocated. If you take 3 billion rand, you spread across all 9 provinces, you literally have done nothing. The economy of this country is dependent on SMME growth, because that's where the job creation starts.
The bringing down of the allocation to SMMEs, I'm sure, was also a big blow.
A very big
towards
blow.
the different businesses as well.
In a nutshell, we look at it and say the majority of those SMME are black, and therefore we don't see a role of SMME, in advancing the economy of the country. The other important element is, as you know, we have a challenge of funding in this country. Now, for the minister not to mention a lot around, large funding to certain national empowerment fund was our concern, to say, how do we build businesses, black businesses, if there's no funding capacity? The second thing is, as you're well aware, that this country is highly challenged based on the skills. We require to see how are we going to collaborate the Black Industrialist Program without the funding capacity and the skill that sits within those industrialists.
Just finally, before I let you go, and please answer quite very quickly, we need to take a break. Did you find that there is a definite disconnect between what was said in the State of the Nation address by our President and Treasury, that they just are not on the same page right now? Do you find that? Is that something people are reading into? Or can you clearly see that this radical transformation, economic transformation that the President is dreaming of is not necessarily being put into practice?
There is a disjoint. Hence we said there is a disjoint from where we sit in making sure that we advance the ownership of the economy from the few 10% to the majority. There is a full disjoint. There's no doubt about that.
All right, we leave it there for this morning. Thanks for talking to us and putting their issues on the table. The Black Business Council's Secretary General, George Sebulela, thank you very much for talking to us, talking about that disjointedness between the State of the Nation address by our President and the budget that was announced last week by our Finance Minister, Pravin Gordhan, just not speaking to enough transformation and radical transformation that is needed here in South Africa.